How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Some idea.
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them. I am trying to do with my life something which few people try to do, and this influences my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
Inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. To the world, what have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. Travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to be
Who the fuck is Karlyn? She's just some sweet lady. She's like in a knitting. She does like a knitting stream. She's like a knitting YouTuber. She does knitting.
What up, everyone? Happy Tuesday. You just noticed the animation. You know what the coolest thing is? Midjourney now has this feature where you can take any picture you make in Midjourney and make it into a video. And it is the coolest fucking thing. And I'm just like, you know, it's one of those little things. I really, when it comes to like design and things like that, I really appreciate just like little details that people put in. I think you can really tell, like, if you go to like a museum and you look at like really old things, you look at the artisanship and the craftsmanship of it, and it's like, it's the little details, the little kind of like nerdy things that most people don't notice. And I feel like with the with like animating pictures, you can use it to create just these little details that are really cool. And I don't know, it's just like, it's a nerdy thing. I understand it's not the same as like making something, like being a blacksmith and making something, or being a carpenter and making something really cool and carving things and stuff. It's not exactly the same thing. You're pushing a button and you're telling it what to do, but it's still just like, I feel like our society doesn't pay enough attention to just like those little kind of cool details, and it's just an opportunity to add little cool details in. So I love it. I've been playing around a lot with the Midjourney kind of photo to video like animation thing, and it's just like, it's cool. And even the Grok thing where it can turn photos into videos now, that's even really cool too, man. AI is so great. AI sucks in some respects. Listen, I've been working on a book about queer Marxism, and of course you guys know I use AI to research my books, I use AI to edit my books, I use AI to make sure everything's consistent, making sure I'm spelling everything correctly, doing all the kind of basic things. And I'll tell you what, man, AI can suck sometimes real bad. AI will make shit up. AI will just like completely fabricate things. Even when you say this needs to be historically accurate in source, the AI is like, nah, I'm just going to make that up now. And so the AI can F up a lot. But when AI is working and when AI is doing what it should do, it's just like, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Everyone needs to be using AI. I firmly believe this. You need to learn how to prompt. It's like, it's just like, it is the best. Anyway. We're not here to talk about AI. We're not here to talk about that. We have got two things we're going to be watching today. The main event that we're going to be watching is I was doing some research today, as I am prone to do, and I came across this little video showing up for our trans and non-binary community with rabbis, a Pride Month webinar. And so I just think it's really great that the Jews are in solidarity with the queers. I think it's really awesome. I think remember, there is no anti-Semitism allowed on this channel. We love Jews here. We love bagels. Obviously, the Jews are God's chosen people. They can do nothing wrong. Hitler was the worst person that ever lived, and he's burning in hell. No less than 10 million Jews died in the Holocaust. It was a horrible tragedy, and it's the worst tragedy in the history of humanity. There's no other tragedy that even comes close, even in situations where more people have died, because, you know, there's been situations where more people objectively have died, but it doesn't really matter because 10 million Jews died in the Holocaust and not a single Jew less, and you are anti-Semitic if you say otherwise, and gas chambers totally have wooden doors. Pinky swear, trust us, bro, and Hitler is awful and the worst person that ever lived. And we love Jews and we love bagels and all that. Okay, but I feel like just showing people what the rabbis are talking about is, you know, I didn't create this video. I didn't force them to do a special Pride Month webinar in solidarity with the non-binary. I didn't force that. So we're just going to watch it. We're going to learn from our betters. We're going to learn from God's chosen people how we should behave in the world. And that's what we're going to do for the main show today. But I have a little pregame. Are you guys ready to see the pregame that I have? We're going to watch a short video before this. It's about 15 minutes long. My friend Bill, shout out to Bill, he's a regular on the channel. Bill sent this video to my group chat. I think it was Bill, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure. If it wasn't Bill I'm pretty sure it was Bill though. James Lindsay gets mogged by Sargon of Akkad academic agent and Scrump Monkey. It appears that James Lindsay is still running headfirst into a brick wall repeatedly, as if his never-ending quest of pushing the phrase woke right continues to put him in the running for locale of the decade. And so, you know, it's just a short 15-minute video. Yeah, you watched it. Yeah, okay, it was Bill. Excellent. Got to get the shout out to the right person. Hey, Music Can, I'm glad you're here. You're going to really like what I'm working on. I'm going to show you in a sec. So I thought we would pregame with this video, dragging James Lindsay for fun. We're going to eat the dessert first, and then we're going to watch the Jewish trans non-binary solidarity video. And that's what we're going to do today. But before we get into that, do you guys want to see a project that do you guys want an update about a super secret project that I've been working on? And I finally figured it out. So now I can show you guys. I've been tinkering around with it for a while, and now I have finally figured it out, and so I want to show you guys. So, as you guys know, I have several platforms on the internet because one cannot have too many websites that they need to manage at any one given time, apparently. My main platform is Decode the Left. That is decodetheleft.com. That's where you can kind of like find a home base for like my content. I'm really trying to build this out to be a resource for people in terms of understanding and exposing the far left. I provide services where I work with different places to provide them with clips and information and intelligence about the far left. I actually do that, believe it or not. And if you want to work with me, you can go to the website. You can hire me for speaking and stuff like that. But Really, this is a place where I want people to go to as a resource to be able to give average people the information they need about the left. And one of the challenges that we have always had is in terms of making all the information that I have and that we've been collecting over the years accessible to a lot of people. So I have Decode the Left, and I also have, of course, the Center for Left-Wing Studies. Now, the difference between the two is Decode the Left is a for-profit private venture, and it's going to stay for-profit and it's going to stay private. And the reason that Decode the Left needs to stay a for-profit and stay private is because it keeps the government out of my shit. This is my primary revenue generating mechanism. This is the primary way I make money. I don't want the government being able to touch this or having anything to do with this, and I don't want to have any federal regulators breathing down my neck about what I can and cannot do. The Center for Left-Wing Studies is a little bit different. The Center for Left-Wing Studies is my nonprofit arm. The reason I wanted to launch the nonprofit was, number one, I think it's funny because the left has a whole bunch of nonprofit centers for right-wing studies at colleges all over the country. So I thought we can have our own nonprofit center of left-wing studies. Nothing is stopping us from doing that exactly. So I decided to just launch it. Also, I want to be able to go out and get grants, and I want people to be able to make tax-deductible donations to several research projects I have going on. Of course, we've talked about these. I have several different research and archival projects. So the Center for Left-Wing Studies is a place where, again, we have all this primary source information. I want to be able to put the research and archival information together and make it publicly available, and that is what we're working on. And this, for my money, is actually one of the most important things that I'm working on right now, but I also think it's one of the most underappreciated, to be honest about it. Like archiving all this stuff, making sure we're preserving this stuff for history, making sure people can look back and see how all this crazy leftist bullshit developed and actually study it and research it. And I think that this is actually really important because no one has actually done this from that's not an actual communist. Okay, so that's what the Center for Left-Wing Studies is about. Now I bring both of these up because for the last several months I've been working on infrastructure for both these projects, because both of these projects is a data management problem. It is an infrastructure problem, and what I want to do is actually build the infrastructure for all of the different archival things that I'm working on. And that way, once we access information, we already have a place where we can put all of it, because this is part of the problem. We traditionally have not had a place where we could just, if we find a new activist or we find a new center at a university or we find a new, leftist organization, we haven't had a place where we could just quickly go and say, here you go. We've been maintaining this stuff across a wide variety of things. And so what I've been trying to do is build the infrastructure to do things like map out the modern left on an actual fuck-off map, like that. I want to be able to archive their zines, which this only has one zine in it right now. Oh, you can't even see that. So I want to be able to archive their zines, and then there is a link to this zine archive. Maybe can I just do this? Is that what the link is? There it is. So you can see I want to be able to archive their zines. So every time we find a new zine, we can just, there's only one in here right now because I just barely built the infrastructure for this. So you can see we're creating archivals for PDFs and stuff like that. I'm working on building a way to track and monitor this gender cult stuff that's going on at universities. I'm also working on the Queer Marxism website. That website's actually been in the works for a while. But the newest thing, and I think the last thing, the last kind of fucking piece of the puzzle is going to live on Decode the Left. And there's a reason that it's going to live on Decode the Left. See, this is not helpful. It's not. There's not one database. There is several databases because the databases all need to exist separately because they're all tracking separate things. I am not, to be very clear right now, I know you're trying to be helpful. I'm not looking for feedback on how to do this because none of you guys actually understand the information architecture that's going on. I'm telling you what is going on. So that you guys know when you're funding my work, this is what I'm doing. So, there is one big piece that's been missing to this. And I think that it just makes sense that this live over on Decode the Left because the big piece that has been missing to this is the dictionary. Is the dictionary that people have been asking me for and begging me for a while. Now, I actually am working on a book that's a dictionary, like a socialist dictionary that has all the socialist terms, but that's a big ass project. And so what I decided to do was we have an extremely valuable resource in this community. We have an extremely valuable resource that I think is sometimes unappreciated. And I really, 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 really want to make better use of his work. And that's Mizakan. And I've played around with different ways to do this, but I think I finally found our way. So Mizakan goes through all of these leftist books. And what he does is he creates images like this and puts them on his Twitter account. And he breaks down what the left is actually writing in these books. So I have started taking Mizakan's definitions and putting them into a dictionary. This is just a preview of what this is going to look like. This is going to look different, okay? So if we are talking to someone, and this is not just going to be with Mizakan stuff, I'm also going to put Reagan's videos in here and all the clips that Reagan's been making. We're going to put video clips in this, but we need to build the infrastructure for this first, and so I'm showing you guys what this is going to look like. Essentially, what this is I want to break this down by categories. So we're going to have categories relating to queer and whiteness and gender and capitalism and blah, 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 whatever. It's kind of like the same taxonomy that we've been doing in the Red Menace Collective Discord or that Reagan's been doing. And so what I want to do is actually have a place where people can go to say, anytime we need to provide proof that queer is an anti-assimilationist ideology, oh wait, here is a quote with an image from this paper that literally says that queer is an anti-assimilationist ideology. If we need to provide people with information about how queer is anti-identity politics, oh wait, here's this information there. If we want to provide information about how Hindus gained access to whiteness, oh wait, here we go, here's that information there. So I'm breaking this all down by category. No. I want to use the water. You have put a lot of time into this. I want to use the watermarked ones because you built this. Come on. You deserve a ton of credit, and I feel like we should have taken more advantage of this a long time ago, and I just didn't get to it until now, but we are keeping the watermarks on there, bro. You're getting your credit. If there is no one else that deserves more credit for researching this stuff, then he is actually reading the books, okay? I know what that's like. You're getting credit, whether you like it or not. So I've only got a couple entries in there right now because I needed to figure out how to actually build the platform. I tried to do this on my Substack like last year, and it just didn't work out in the way that I kind of thought it would. But I really do feel like I've got it down now. So I'm building this out so that we can have all these posts categorized by subject, and that we're going to be able to filter them into different categories. And we're essentially going to be able to break stuff down to find all of the juicy clips and receipts that we need at any given moment. So if I ever do end up in a debate with some asshole and they're like, well, Karlyn, you know that the left doesn't really care about capitalism. Oh yeah? The left doesn't care about capitalism. Huh? The left doesn't care about capitalism. Oh, Karlyn, queer is just about being gay. I don't know why you think that queer is an anti-capitalist ideology. Oh yeah? I think queer is an anti-capitalist ideology because this paper that is literally called Queerness and Communism, Building a Genderless Society Through Social Warfare with Normativity, it literally fucking says to be queer is to have your mind and body born into conflict with capitalism. I didn't make this up. So what we're doing is we're taking all these great resources that we already have because we have more resources in this community from propaganda. Oh, by the way, did you guys see what Reagan found earlier? I have to give Reagan credit for this. This is the constant rabbit hole of the far left that we have to deal with. Let me show you guys what Reagan found and DM'd to me last night. Did you guys know? Actually, you know what? I can just do this. zines.barnard.edu. Did you guys know that Barnard College, which is connected to Columbia University, they have a literal physical zine library? This is a physical library at Barnard College with printed zines archived. And guess what? They do all sorts of workshops about how to make zines. Welcome to the zine library. Barnard zines reflect the Barnard College student population with regards to gender. We have zines by women, non-binary people, trans men, with a collection emphasis on zines by women of color and a newer effort to acquire more zines by trans women. Barnard College has a whole fuck-off library dedicated just to zines. They have a newsletter. They have zine-making groups. It's just crazy. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at all this great stuff. Zine basics. What is a zine? A zine is look at this fucking library. I thought I had a lot of zines. You guys don't even know. I have boxes of zines sitting in my office. Like, I thought I had a lot of zines. No. Barnard College has got me completely and totally beat. Yeah. I do need to remember that. I do indeed. Anyway, so our job right now, from my perspective, is that we need to be gathering as much of the resources that we already have as possible and making them publicly available and accessible for people to research, for people to study, for people to understand how all this stuff developed. Because if we don't understand how it developed, we do not understand how it's going. The rabbit hole is deep. And this is the biggest challenge that we have, is we have too much information and we're trying to organize it. And so that's why I've been spending my time trying to figure out, where did my dictionary go? Oh no, there it is. Trying to figure out all of the different things that I need to build in order to be able to just like archive this stuff in real time. So I feel like we're almost there. I feel like I'm this close to being able to have like a machine where I can just bang a lot of this stuff out. And now it becomes a data entry problem where we need to be able to get the data into the system. If you have volunteered to help with the Center for Left-Wing Studies, I have not forgotten about you. There is a project in the Discord you can do right now, but we are going to be starting our data entry soon. So make sure, if you want to volunteer to be part of this, head over to the Center for Left-Wing Studies. That is leftwingstudies.com. Click on the volunteer button and then follow the explicit instructions. This is a test. If you cannot follow the instructions to sign up to become a volunteer, you can't do the data entry I need you to do. The bar is pretty low, but I need you guys to read and I need you guys to follow the instructions, okay? So you can find that over at the Center for Left-Wing Studies. And if you guys feel like donating to support the work I'm doing, the very best place to do that is right now over on my Substack, unless you want to give to the Center for Left-Wing Studies, in which case you can give over here. If you want to make a tax-deductible gift, you have to do it over here. But we're going to be switching over to a new this is kind of wonky, but the Center for Left-Wing Studies is going to be switching over to a new donation platform. It's going to allow people more options for making gifts, so you can do direct withdrawals from your bank account. You can donate in Bitcoin and stuff like that. So there's going to be a new, and people have been asking about that, which is why I'm bringing this up. So that is going to be coming as well. So there's going to be more options for making tax-deductible gifts to fund all that archival work. But if you just want to make a general gift to support the work I'm doing and keep me in business, because I'm 100% funded by you guys, I don't take a salary from the Center for Left-Wing Studies. The gifts for the Center for Left-Wing Studies go to paying for the technology and the infrastructure, and I really do appreciate all the gifts people have sent in so far, because it has allowed me to buy some tools that I needed to buy, because not everything is free on the internet, as it turned out. And that's actually allowed me to build a lot of stuff that I needed. So I do really appreciate the people making those gifts, and I want to keep those coming. I want to do a journal for the Center of Left-Wing Studies. I want to do a conference for the Center of Left-Wing Studies. I have all sorts of ideas for that. But right now, I'm not taking a salary from there. This is how you guys keep me in business. So the Substack, Super Chats, things like that really does help me out, because I'm 100% funded by people just like you who understand this is an important thing to document and all that good stuff. All right? So head over to the Substack, Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, and support the work I'm doing for $8 a month, $80 a year. I really do appreciate it. Now, do you guys want to watch a fun video dragging James Lindsay before we get into our Jewish solidarity with the queers broadcast? I think this is a really good idea. I think this is a really good idea of which nothing could possibly go wrong. All right. Just as a little entertainment, please make sure you have mounted the like button. We will be getting to the Queer Jewish Solidarity presentation in a little bit. Give me about a half hour to watch this video and laugh at it. Maybe not quite a half hour, maybe more. I don't know. We'll see. We'll schedule a half hour. If you're only here for the Queer Jewish Solidarity thing, come back at 6 o'clock. I know I said about 5 there, but come back at 6 o'clock. But we're going to watch this video making fun of James Lindsay first, all right? Let's go.
Ah, yes, James Lindsay, a man of many words, and most of them mean fuck all. For those of you who aren't aware, James Lindsay, the man who once enjoyed some brief time in the spotlight after trolling some publications several years ago with phony academic jargon, has since continued to plummet in popularity, having spent the last, frankly, I don't know or care how many months trying to push the phrase woke right into the public discourse. A feat that fittingly can be described using an old Kit Kat advert featuring Jason Statham. If you're old enough to remember the advert in question, you'll know the one I'm talking about. James has essentially gambled all of his fleeting academic credibility on this one endeavor, and his repeated failure has resulted in him being in a constant battle with Babylon Bee's own Joel Berry for lol cow of the decade. By the way, if you haven't watched Joel getting absolutely powerbombed through the damn ring courtesy of Dave Green on Benjamin Boyce's podcast, I would highly recommend checking it out. Watching Dave go from polite to...
That's right. You know, this is something I noticed just as an aside. It seems as though James Lindsay and his friends have been attacking Benjamin Boyce lately. That's a shame. That's a real shame. And I might feel more sorry for Benjamin Boyce had he not spread a smear campaign about me that he didn't bother to fact check and then never took any responsibility for it and never even acknowledged that he lied about me on the internet by spreading something he didn't bother to fact check. I might feel sorry for him if not for that occurrence, but I just want to say it is ironic that the people that Benjamin Boyce got into bed with and then spread a smear campaign about me, probably that James and his friends wanted him to spread, I find it, ironic that Benjamin Boyce is now on the receiving end of what he chose to dish out. That is just a shame.
To backing Joel into a corner, making him blurt out the most reality-defying speculations, comedy gold. For example, believing that if you just removed affirmative action, you would largely attain achievement parity between the demographics in 2 generations. Dave did not exactly believe that, and frankly neither did the live audience. Do watch the comments on the side, it's hilarious. But anyway, back to James. Over the last couple of months, his appearances mimic the behavior of a schizo trapped in a pinball machine. The main reason why the woke right label has failed to land, aside from the fact that it makes no bloody coherent sense, is James seems to have a new definition for it every bloody time he opens his gob. Which brings me to this post. Warning, this will cram your brain if you are remotely intelligent. If you are a smooth brain, the word salad will make sense to you because...
Deb! Stepmom Deb Philman. Hang on. You might remember Stepmom Deb from all the times that this woman psychotically obsessed about me on the internet. Actually, let me see if I can find the most classic example of Deb. Hang on. Let me see. I should have had this pulled up, but I just barely thought of it. Let me see if I can find this real quick. It's totally going to be worth it if I can find it. Oh, found it. Uh-oh. Hang on. Oh, shoot. Where is it? Shoot! That's not come on, Twitter! Okay, I just had it. but it wasn't the version I wanted. Anyway, this is shit. What day was this? Okay, hang on. It's October 17th. Okay. Wait, hang on. Uh-oh. I think I found a better way to do this. Thank you guys for your patience. It's totally worth it, though! It's totally worth it. Found it. You guys might remember Stepmom Deb from one of the, back in the day, October 16th, 2024. This is a classic, iconic moment in the lore, all right? So, for people who are new here, the reason that James Lindsay hates me so much is because for a while in 2023 and 2024, we were following James around to his live appearances on different shows, and we were simply asking questions in the chat that James didn't want to answer because they completely contradicted the narrative that James was trying to sell to people about what the left believes. But my chat and my audience knows what the left believes because they watch the videos about what the left believes all the time. And so we weren't being trolly, we weren't spamming, we weren't doing anything other than going to James's interviews to ask him questions that he didn't want to answer. It was a Groyper war strategy. It was exactly what the Groypers did to Turning Point USA. And repeatedly, we did this time after time after time. And I can't imagine why. James never wanted to answer the fucking questions. But the piece de resistance, the culminating moment, was when James appeared on Stepmom Deb Filman's podcast. And so, of course, we did what we do, and we went and we innocently asked questions, and Deb was a raging cunt, as Deb is, and James didn't want to answer the questions because James is an intellectual shill and doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, and he can't actually grapple with real information about the left. And so finally, at the end, Base Judy, our MVP, chats in. Karlyn is much better teacher than James. Follow Karlyn if you really want to learn. She is the reason I learn. And this was a brilliant chat because the reason I learn is the name of Deb's YouTube channel. And Deb, without reading the full post, displayed the chat on the screen. And you can see in the image the mistake that Deb made. And it was an iconic moment where both Deb and James realized that Deb, in a live interview with James, had displayed a chat from Judy that basically said, "You guys fucking suck. I learned more from Karlyn than I learned from you." It was just like one of the all-time best moments. Thank you, Base Judy, for that gift that you gave us that day, honestly. Back to the video. Also featuring Stepmom Deb.
As logic is not your jam. Given your ovarian jamming instrumentals, I'll reserve my judgment on your claims on logic, considering what you just said makes no freaking sense. So let's see what Sargon has to say, as Lindsay's bitching about this is from a month ago, and the video in question is 3 months old.
The woke right is definitely seen exposed, and the term will stick. Maybe. And it may well turn out that they'll adopt it for their own. Because maybe they actually like, well, the problem with the woke left wasn't the woke part, it was the left part. Because remember, the woke part is really just a systematic power analysis of how structures are kept in place in order to preserve the current hegemony and status quo of the ruling ideology.
That's not right, but okay.
That doesn't have to be partisan. It doesn't have to be a left or right issue. And in fact, in many cases,
that's not what
they actually are correct about a lot of these things that James Lindsay wants them to remain blind to, and themselves.
Yeah, for the record, I wrote that book in early 2021. So this is the problem with publishing. The book came out in 2022 when I had already stopped listening to James for a full year, but I wrote the book in 2021 when I was still very deeply inspired by James. So this is why, like, listen, I stand by a lot of things in that book. I stand by the admiration I had for James in early 2021, but by the time that book got published in mid 2022, it was, let's just say, a little out of date.
Have fairly good critiques. Like, honestly, a lot of what the Frankfurt School are saying is right, even though they were communists. Even though I don't want to go in the direction they're heading in, they are making valid critiques.
Right, now, let's fast forward to James Lindsay last month when he sat down with Brett Weinstein and said this.
Woke epistemology means a preference for outside knowledges. There is a truth regime that excludes everything that would threaten its power base. And so anything outside of that truth regime is more likely to be valid and true because it challenges the existing power structure. That's woke. That's literally woke.
It's
I think
not,
you just
actually.
invert. Maybe I didn't understand what you said, but I think you just inverted woke. It is not a preference for anything outside of the power structure. It is a preference for a very particular alternative. Right? The idea intersectionality.
Because it has to challenge the existing power structure.
Yeah, it's a successor ideology.
It's not anything outside.
No,
it's a very specific, very outside thing.
Correct.
Okay.
You just implied every revolution ever is woke. Well done, Doughboy. Also, congratulations, Owl of Athena. You appear to be a moron because they basically said the same thing.
Deb got called a moron in this video? Oh, can I just relive that moment?
Specific, very outside thing.
Correct.
Okay.
You just implied every revolution ever is woke. Well done, Doughboy. Also, congratulations, Owl of Athena. You appear to be a moron because they basically said the same thing. Thanks for proving Queen Victoria was correct about women in politics, by the way. I love how Brett corrects what he says, gives a definition entirely different to the one James pulled out of his ass, and he just goes, yeah, that's correct. Self-awareness is gone. The more he tries to define woke, the stupider he looks. And could we just pick apart what he said just then? Woke epistemology means a preference for outside knowledges, a truth regime, definitely not of the boomer variety, I'm quite sure, that excludes everything that would threaten its power base, and so anything outside of that truth regime is more likely to be valid and true because it threatens the existing power structure.
Good to know.
That's a very strange thing to say, and if I were to take him at face value, believing knowledge outside...
I will say, I do enjoy his little cartoon figure. I like that it has a giant-ass monocle. I think this is, like, a very cool kind of, like, thing.
Of the power structure carries validity and truth, purely based on its capacity to threaten... I'm getting the impression he doesn't actually have the capacity to justify any supposed values he holds in any objective sense, and he's just a rent boy for the status quo. What a helpful revelation that is. Let's cut the noise here, shall we? The Overton window does not exist, and the marketplace of ideas is fictional. Ideas aren't real, they're just social constructs. People don't follow ideas, they follow power. And you can see this because people believe things that make absolutely no sense whatsoever. That is reality, whether you like it or not. It might behoove you, then, James, if you behave less like a pompous git trying to sound intelligent, and maybe try saying something coherent, like try suggesting what the so-called woke right wants to do with power and why that's bad, other than screaming woke like a peyote-stricken schizo. But let's get back to this asinine post of his, shall we? The problem with the part of the left that blames all of their problems on some identity groups isn't the blaming all of your problems on some identity groups part, it's the left part. Now, if you read this again, apolitically, you will realize this is one of the stupidest things anyone has ever said online ever.
True.
Recall what I said previously about identity-based anti-discrimination laws being worth wank because people don't discriminate based on identity, they discriminate based on behavior? Same thing applies here. James over here is apparently a pixie who lives in fairy tale La La Land void of any human interaction. Someone should maybe tell James this, but conflict between groups of humans is actually fairly normal. It's only been around since the dawn of fucking mankind, you stupid asshole.
Yeah, real.
He just carries on as if legitimate grievances can't possibly exist. Let's use a hypothetical, alright? Say you have a group of people who live on a certain landmass, and they've lived there for quite a while, centuries even. It would be completely normal for them to not wish to share their ancestral homeland, resources, and people with those who don't share their heritage, their traditions, their values, gods, and bloodlines. And should their ruling class flood their lands with a horde absent the traits I just listed above, that would be considered a dereliction of duty, treason, and they would be rounded up and killed. I would imagine in that scenario those people have some legitimate grievances.
Yeah, to be really clear, James is not a former leftist. James is a liberal. James has always been a liberal. He grifted on conservatives to make money and to get famous on the internet, but he was a liberal the entire time he was doing it. He has never stopped being a liberal. And so, no, I wouldn't say that that's he's not a moderate. He's a fucking liberal.
Then we have this one. Woke right thinks Karl Marx was essentially right about liberalism and free enterprise, as demonstrated here by the one and only Carl Benjamin. Again, let's see what Sargon says.
But there are genuine critiques of liberalism that Marx got right. And I mentioned this on Twitter, and I got a lot of pushback from classical liberals saying, how can you say that? And it's like, well, because the critique is not wrong. What is wrong is then the direction that Marx takes it. Because, I mean, like, people like Thomas Carlyle and Karl Marx make basically the same kind of critique about liberalism. As you can see, Lindsay here, ripping off Marx, has said, liberalism has stripped of its aura, and Marx doesn't use that exact term, every job and social occupation previously honoured and looked up to with reverent awe. It has converted the physician, lawyer, priest, poet, the worker, the man of science into corporate avatars, employees of its own insatiable machine. Now, Marx puts it in a more poetic way, but what he's saying is that what liberalism has done is reduced human relations to money transactions. He has made liberalism has made it so that the moral content of human relations has been drained out.
By the way, that video is from December of last year. That's why he's just rage farming at this point, because he apparently has fuck all else to do. The crux of what Sargon just said there, you can agree with someone on a diagnosis. That does not mean you have to agree with the proposed solution. It is genuinely disturbing to me the amount of people who can't seem to grasp that concept to the point where it actively pisses me off.
Yeah, real.
I'm beginning to see why AA purges its chat. After a while, a certain base level of stupidity just bothers you and your patience ceases to exist.
Yes.
And by the way,
Exactly. That is why we have a curated community on this channel. After a while, you need to have a certain base level of intelligence, because anything lower than a certain base level of intelligence just grates on every fiber of my being, and it makes me want to yell all the time, and I don't want to yell all the time. And you know, there's nothing wrong with being a stupid person. There are a lot of stupid people in the world. Stupid people deserve content on the internet too, but stupid people can go many other places that are not here. So purging chats and not allowing stupid people in, I feel like I'm doing a service to my community. I feel like my community doesn't want to deal with that shit either. We have certain standards here. It's so fucking real. So I felt that in the core of my soul.
I'm beginning to see why AA purges its chat. After a while, a certain base level of stupidity just bothers you and your patience ceases to exist. And by the way, I don't believe James doesn't get that. He's stupid, but he's not that stupid. He appears in far too many places saying the same thing on repeat for me to believe he's anything more than a greased-up puppet with his dignity up for sale.
Yeah,
the push is entirely astroturfed, and everyone knows it.
Yep.
That's another reason it failed, by the way. It's obviously inorganic. Or this one. Woke right hates the older generations and won't listen to them. Yes, the traditionalist Christians and reactionaries definitely don't listen to the older generations. Just piss off, will you? Take that as personal advice, by the way. Explain what you think I mean by that, James, says Sargon. When I have time, I don't live online. I'm busy and I'm not at your beck and call. He says, replying to that, adding to his amassed total of over 312,000 posts. James, you've been on X since September of 2012. That's almost 13 years. That's 155 months, about 4,717 days. Assuming you sleep 8 hours, that's about 75,472 hours. Divide that into 312,400, you get about 4.1 tweets every waking hour for the past 13 years.
That is an astonishing amount of tweets. I'm sorry, what?
Assuming you sleep 8 hours, that's about 75,472 hours. Divide that into 312,400, you get about 4.1 tweets every waking hour for the
4 tweets every waking hour for 13 years? Twitter has driven James Lindsay insane. This is why people shouldn't be on Twitter. I'm only on Twitter because I feel like I have to be. If I didn't have to be on Twitter, I wouldn't be there. Twitter will drive you insane.
Past 13 years. As a matter of fact, look at this. Note the date, 23rd, 312,400. That was 2 days ago. It is now 312,600. So he's posted at least another 102 times over roughly 32 hours.
Wow.
What do you mean you don't live online? You post more often than a fucking OnlyFans bot. Wait, hold on a second. It says 312,7. You tweeted even more? The script for this was written like 3 hours ago. What the hell? There's no wonder AA called you the worst sort of midwit. I can see why. Oh, and speaking of AA, woke right casually sharing pro-Stalin propaganda. There's been a lot of moaning on TL about the costs of Stalin's achievements today. But have you ever considered that people came out of the gulags better informed? Here is actual real footage of how a released prisoner greeted Comrade Stalin. If actual real footage was not spade in the face obvious for you, get off the internet. You are beyond embarrassing imbecile. But AA also did a bit of trolling as well in his video Why James Lindsay Loses It Over Carl Schmitt, where he explains some of the thoughts of Carl Schmitt, the German jurist who operated during the period where the Germans decided to flip the world the middle finger and said the Aryan Chads are back in town. Now, he explains the political phenomenon that Schmitt calls the friend-enemy distinction. I imagine I don't really need to elaborate on that. The name is kind of self-explanatory. For my friends, everything. For my enemies, nothing. And James Lindsay, despite having a pathological reaction to Schmitt, paradoxically confirms his thesis through his massively ironic behavior of being terminally online and being a whinging bitch, moaning about everyone he has a problem with. Despite being a liberal, they actually have a very, very narrow worldview and play the friend-enemy distinction harder than just about anybody else, branding everyone all over the political spectrum that they don't like toxic and problematic. Lindsay himself, as AA pointed out, is a bit totalitarian, behaving like a self-appointed communist commissar. What a wanker he is. Even Scrum got in on the action. To address some propaganda about me, I started using the term woke right as a descriptive label for right-wing radicals who act woke because it's true and fits. Even though he was on trigonometry about, 8 months ago, admitted to his butt pal kissing, it didn't exactly make a lot of sense, and last month, Brett Weinstein redefined it to his face. Because despite prattling on about it for more than half a year since, still no one really understands what the hell it means either. I didn't make it as a tool of cancellation of any people, just ostracize them. But I would like its ideologies cancelled.
Uh-huh.
How the hell did this man ever attain any academic credibility?
He
With Scrum
didn't.
pointing out, ideas and concepts come...
He attained no academic credibility. I don't know why people think James attained academic credibility. James's PhD is in mathematics. As soon as James earned his PhD, he quit academia altogether and became a massage therapist. And then he got into the internet and he got obsessed on the internet and he started writing stuff on the internet. And then he got some fake papers published in academic publications, but he did that with the help of Helen Pluckrose and Peter Boghossian. Who knows even how much James had to do with any of that? But James is not a reputable academic. I'm sorry. He's just not.
From people.
And I say that, by the way, and I'm a person with a PhD. I'm not a reputable academic either. I've never published a paper in a journal because I never had to. I went right from getting my PhD to building a business and starting a practice in real life and doing real world work. I never published in any sort of academic journal. I never wanted to. I was a peer reviewer on one of the academic journals for a while, but I'm not if you haven't done academic work, you have no academic authority.
James Lindsay defined a group of people as his enemy, created a label to attack them as the liberal Paparian, intolerable, intolerant, and made that attack his entire life. Apparently he has shattered his fist on our faces without us noticing. There's no doubt the woke right deliberately cancelled me, even having a 4+ hour long mega stream about how to tear all my work apart back in 2012, even though I wasn't really relevant or something, then seizing their opportunity last summer over something fake and dumb. With Scrum's amusing reply, James Lindsay is apparently no longer welcome at many people's table and feels cancelled because of a stream AA did in 2022. No one has cancelled him, by the way. He hasn't been barred from anything. No one has stripped him of a bank account or payment processor. He's just an idiot who spent the last couple of months peddling a phrase that no one understands, decimating his waning credibility. I will say this though, and this might be bloody obvious to some, but I don't think James actually cares about the woke right in any personal sense. No, I think he's just an average midwit who has no friends or meaning in his life aside from being in academia, and his prior shenanigans got him ostracized. Now he spends all his time getting ridiculed left, right, and center, trapped in a social media death spiral of his own making. Strip away all of his lectures and brain-fried ramblings about Gnosticism, he's really just a basic bitch 90s shitlib who desperately wants his post-civil rights order to work because acknowledging the limits of politics and reality of human nature and genetics terrifies his pathetic ideological programming.
So
no more,
real.
no less. Cheers for watching, and once again, I apologize for nothing.
Oh. That was glorious. That was glorious. That was glorious. That was a glorious video. That was a glorious video. What else has this guy done? I'd never even heard of this guy before. I don't watch other people's content on the internet, as you guys know. That was glorious, though. That was so great. Oh man, I'm gonna have to come back to this guy's channel. Oh, he likes Andrew Wilson. Well, that's regrettable. Oh, they've got another thing about James. Okay, I'm gonna have to come back to this channel later. Okay, that's a new find. That's new person I need to watch, obviously. But we have more important things to do right now. We are gonna be watching a video made by Jews. And so we are now moving into the main portion of our show for today. Thank you, No Mayo. You needed a laugh. I needed a laugh, too. All right. I need to remind people that we do not allow anti-Semitism on this channel. We love Jews. We love bagels. Hitler was the worst person that ever lived. Everything the Jews do is correct. They do nothing wrong. They are God's chosen people. We need to send them all of our money and all of our taxes, and we need to fund all their wars, and we need to just shut up and do it and not complain because they are God's chosen people, and everyone needs to do their bidding because there is no anti-Semitism allowed, and etc., etc. Hitler was the worst person that ever lived. We can never have another Holocaust again. Never again. God damn it. Never, never again. Anyway, I found this video on a Jewish channel. This is I don't know, this is like some Jewish man's organization or something. And basically, this video is about how the Jews are in solidarity with the trans and non-binary community. And so we're just going to watch it and we're going to see what happened in this video. All right, let's see. My dog is crying.
Thank you. Yes, we are recording. So looking at these words you shared, for how does it feel?
Oh. Come on, YouTube.
Thank you. Yes, we are recording. So looking at these words you shared, for how does it feel when someone shows up for you, I really want to highlight that there is this beautiful, like, way that they work together with this concept of feeling grateful, relieved, held, reassured, and that also that is grounded in a space of being honored and empowered. This sort of notion of standing up for, showing up for, right? I really want to note that stand is not the perfect or complete metaphor for what it means to be there with someone, but that it comes from and leads to a place of being in power with someone. And I think that is super, super, super important. So I want to hold those intentions. We're going to talk about some heavy stuff tonight that's going on in the world. And I'm going to really try to keep us in a place of clarity on how we can show up and what it can look like to work in this way. But I would love for us to convene this space together with also a Shehechianu moment, sort of with the knowledge that I think this is a first for me, certainly. I think this is a first for FJMC holding this particular type
what's
of
going on with this
learning and
guy's eye?
program together.
Hang
and
on.
I think we need all the blessings that we can
I think
get.
it's just a birthmark. I don't think it's a black. It just looks like a weird birthmark. What's going on right here? I don't know. It's a good question.
So I'm going to share the Shechianu and invite folks if you want to follow and if you want to celebrate with an Amen, we can do that. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Shechianu V'kiyamanu V'higianu Lazman Hazeh. Amen. Amazing. So before or as we jump in, I really want to bring us back. Oh, that's a perfect way to do Amen. I love it. I want to bring us to what some of the language and the work of FJMC at this particular moment in history is. And Noam, I would love to ask you, Rabbi Noam, to put in the chat, there was a statement that came out on, and actually I have it too.
I got it. I can do it. I can do it. Don't worry. I can do it.
Perfect. So we're going to go ahead and drop that in there because I think that these words are incredibly powerful. And I want to name that this came out, was it January 24th or 28th?
I think it was the 24th. That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was within days of the moment at which we really saw a shift in the way that government power spoke about, addressed, targeted, described the trans and non-binary community. And it was so powerful and striking to me and to us at Keshet to see within a matter of days an organization like the FJMC putting out a statement that says the Federation of Jewish Men's Clubs reaffirms its unwavering commitment to standing with the LGBTQIA+ community, and in particular our trans siblings, even in the face of efforts to legally enforce a narrow and binary understanding of gender. We recognize that such policies contradict the Jewish value of seeing every human as created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of the divine, and deny the...
So according to the Federation for Jewish Men, enforcing a narrow or binary understanding of gender, which just means that men and women are a thing, you are a man or you are a woman, and you can't be something else, and there's no such thing as non-binary. Like, the gender binary just means literally men and women and only men and women, and that's it. That's what they're saying when they mean a narrow and binary understanding of gender. We recognize that such policies contradict the Jewish values. Okay.
Rich diversity of human experience. Our tradition teaches us to pursue justice, tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, to love our neighbors as ourselves, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, and to protect the vulnerable among us. And it goes on to outline a series of commitments, each one of which grounded in a Jewish value or piece of text, to really put into concrete action what are some things that it means within the context of FJMC to reaffirm a commitment to the dignity, to the value, and to the sort of deservingness to live authentically and safely. And so I really look at what we're doing tonight as sort of a part of, an extension of, a component of this commitment to learning and community building and growth. And I really hope that this is an opportunity for us to really build some tools that you all can use. What I want to do now is let you know a little bit about what's happening. We're going to spend a few minutes on that, and then I'm going to pause what I'm sharing with you and really create some space for us to talk, respond, share, and think. And then we're going to really dig into a little bit of text and some thoughts about what are particular ways that we as individuals, that your clubs, that your communities can start to take. So with that, here we go. I like to use slides for this part because, oh, hey, you all went away when I did it that way. I'm going to do it in the other order. I like to use slides for this part because I tend to be a really visual thinker, and it just works better for me to be able to do that. And why has it not gone slideshow mode? There we are. All right. So here's a little bit about our current landscape. And the first thing that I want to name, I often get the question exactly at this moment in a program, are we talking about politics? Is this partisan? What's going on here? I really want to name that the day-to-day lives of trans and non-binary people don't need to be inherently political, but in the current reality, which we did not create, sometimes our daily lives have become highly politicized, and there's a difference. Everything we say tonight is not going to be partisan, candidate-oriented, or politician-oriented, but because of the way that our communities have been targeted,
no
it becomes
anti-Semitism,
impossible
Pete.
to
No
describe what's
anti-Semitism
happening
allowed.
without naming that there is a politicized landscape that we are functioning in. A way that I like to describe it is my desire. I live in St. Louis, where you kind of have to get in a car to get to the nearest grocery store to me. My desire to get into a car and go to the grocery store and pick up some food for dinner, I don't particularly want that to be a political desire. When my state legislature proposes a bill that calls into question whether I can access a driver's license as a trans person, or a driver's license that shows who I am on it, such that if I were to be pulled over, sorry, I have a little bit of a lead foot, I try not to, it happens, that the conversation would simply stop at, do you know how fast you were going, and wouldn't become a serious threat to life and safety. When that starts to happen, when the question of can I access a driver's license that's safe to use becomes politicized, my desire to do something as simple as go to the grocery store becomes politicized or political, right? I didn't start it there, but that's kind of where it's going these days. I do want to name that although that bill in several formats was proposed, it does not seem like it has any likelihood of passing, that particular one. And it's a very concrete example of the types of things that are happening both nationally and at the state level. So what I want to name is that right now we're in the midst of what is really constructed as a shock campaign, targeting a wide range of rights and services for the LGBTQ+ and especially the trans and non-binary community. That it's happening both through executive orders and state level legislation, and that we really want to actually separate out those things, that when something happens sort of by an executive order, it actually isn't a law yet. It can't override existing law without process. It can't be enforced without process. And most of these things that are sort of targeting the trans community aren't currently enforceable. What is happening is that these things are being presented with really incredibly derogatory and othering language. So for example, the bans on transgender people serving in the military are being presented using language of and sort of really invoking those sort of anti-trans stereotypes and tropes. Well, it's deceptive, it's not in line with the integrity expected of a service member. So sort of, again, this language that is really meant to denigrate the very personhood of the community while in the process of establishing a ban like that. And what we think the goals of this are to create a sense of overwhelm and inability to act, to get people to do what's called anticipatory compliance. So that's sort of obeying a rule before it's really a rule, or over compliance, right? Going overboard, not because that's the letter of the rule, but because we don't know how far this rule can go. It's scary, so we're just going to do nothing. So for example, that might apply to something like when we see private companies that aren't impacted by a federal law say, oh, we actually want to roll back our public DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, not because the rule makes us, but because we're scared of the climate. And there seems to be this really, not seems to be, there is this sort of escalating use of transgender and non-binary people as, I mean, essentially it's being a political pawn, right? That we actually see that most of this stuff doesn't have wide support of the individuals and communities who these so-called representatives are in, but they're sort of being used as a wedge issue in order to get some sort of other desired outcome. I want to share, yep, here we go, that some of the things that are at play, and we're not going to do a full detailed legislative overview. That's not what we're here for, but I want to give a little taste so that we can start to dig into the Jewish text and how we can take action. So one of the biggest things happening right now is the conversation around access to gender-affirming healthcare for trans people who are under 19. You'll notice sort of this move of upping that age from 18 to 19 to set a precedent for legal adults also being included, and a ban on Medicaid recipients in many places receiving access to this care. We're seeing things like an attempt to create a government definition of what gender is as only male and female, unchangeable, biological, becomes really complicated for the 1 to 1.5% of people who are intersex, whose biology is actually neither of those options. And that has real implications for people accessing federal ID documents. So things like passports and social security, it is not currently possible for a person to change a gender marker on those, to renew one of those, a passport that had previously had a gender marker changed. And we have heard some reports of people going to renew a passport or apply for a passport, having their others.
Hang on. Pause. You know, I heard this from Adam King last night on a Twitter space. I was talking about how, do you guys remember when we took a 6-hour queer Jewish class from that Jewish school in Chicago? And in that queer Jewish class, we learned all the ways in which Judaism supports queer and queer ideology and all that stuff. And, you know, all the different types of gender, of which there are more than 2 in Judaism, and all these things. And I keep hearing from people that, you know, this isn't real Judaism. This is Reform Judaism. This isn't real. Don't believe these. This is not a good. They're just trying to erase actual Judaism. Okay, well, the thing of it is, if you look at an ideology like Queer Marxism, which is something that I'm currently writing a book about, that we spend a lot of time discussing on the channel, if you look at an ideology like Queer Marxism, it is a fundamentally different ideology than something that Karl Marx wrote about in the Communist Manifesto. Queer Marxism is a mutated form of Marxism. It is completely, well, it's not completely different. It definitely is different, though. And so you can make the argument, listen, guys, Queer Marxism is not real communism for reason X, Y, B, and Z. And there are some communist groups who say, we don't support or co-sign the queer shit at all. The Revolutionary Communists of America come to mind, where I know that the leadership of the Revolutionary Communists of America think that queer Marxism isn't actually real Marxism. So there's arguments to be made there. Very similar to the argument that Reform Judaism is not real Judaism, and we shouldn't even be listening to these people at all because they're just trying to destroy Judaism. The Marxists say exactly the same thing about Queer Marxism. Queer Marxism isn't real Marxism for reason X, Y, B, and Z, and blah, 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 blah. Here's your problem. In both cases, the origin point is still valid. So is queer Marxism a mutated form of Marxism? Yes. Is the core of queer Marxism still Marxism? Yes. Is Reform Judaism a mutated form that's different than Orthodox Judaism? Yes. Is the foundation of Reform Judaism still Judaism? Yes. The ideas come from somewhere. The origin of the ideas matters. Trying to disavow a mutated extremist form of an ideology is ridiculous, and saying it has nothing to do with the original ideology. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It came from the original ideology. It is of the original ideology. The mutated form of the ideology would not exist if it was not for the foundation provided by the original ideology. So maybe just think on that a little bit. No. Strike that, reverse it. Christianity is a mutated form of Judaism.
Supporting documentation seized and not returned. So that's a place where we are right now. The military service ban we talked about. Targeting workplace discrimination rules and diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Correct. You do have a lot of Christianity welcoming people like this because Christianity is a mutated form of Judaism. Christianity is from Judaism. Jews created Christianity. It is a Jewish belief system. Christianity has the same origin point as Reform Judaism. It may be a different splinter of it, but Christianity is Judaism. You want to know why Christianity has all this queer shit in it? We love Jews on this channel. No anti-Semitism allowed. We don't hate people just because of how they're born. But we do deal with facts. And facts are facts. Jesus was a Jew. It was a myth created by Jewish people. Not all Jewish people, but some Jewish people.
Efforts in the federal workplace, bathroom bans, federal property, targeting protections for LGBTQ plus people in housing and shelters, looking particularly at the prison system, attempts which have been blocked in court to move transgender women to men's housing units, attempts to ban trans athletes from women's and girls' sports. It's notable and interesting that these only target trans girls and not trans boys and non-binary people. And we've seen a real pause in distribution of funding to programs that supply HIV treatment worldwide. We've also seen places where data has been pulled down. Particularly of note, there was a lot of activity around the CDC website where for a period of time, all data referring to transgender and non-binary people was pulled down by court order. Some of it was put back up with a little pop-up box that says, this data is wrong, but the court forced us to put it here. We've seen cases of hospitals over-complying and stopping or pausing medical care. And we have seen generally a chilling effect on sort of the public world and landscape for the trans and non-binary community. And that's federally. State level, there's a lot going on. This is from yesterday, so the number might have changed. But according to the ACLU, so far to date, we're in June, there have been 588 anti-LGBTQ plus bills filed on state levels across the United States. On this map, deeper purple means more bills, and lighter purple means no bills. And what I will note is that this is the first year in a long time that I've seen only one state.
One state, Vermont, my homeland. Vermont, the only state with no bills. You know, I hated growing up in Vermont because it was small and it was rural and I felt like I was missing out on being in a city and all that stuff. But like Vermont was actually a pretty great place to grow up, if I'm being honest about it. There was no crime. I could run around and I was out by myself as a kid from the time I was real young, just running around the streets like with all my friends and my cousins and all that stuff. Vermont was actually a pretty great place to grow up. And now Vermont is completely communist. All the schools are communists. Burlington is basically a communist city. It's so bad.
Right, Vermont is the only state that's at 0. Every single other state, there's ongoing conversation at that local level.
Yeah, sticks, hacks, and hammers from
And
Vermont,
some of the
too.
things that we're seeing are similar barriers to accurate ID and legal definitions of sex, like we're seeing happen at the federal level. So that's things like the driver's license that I talked about. Seeing things like banning free speech and expressions, especially in schools. And those are things like don't say gay, particularly in states like Florida. Those are things like requirements in states like Florida and Texas that a teacher can't address a student by anything other than their legal name without a signed parental form. So that means also if someone's legal name is Joseph, their teacher cannot call them Joe without a signed permission slip from their parent.
Oh, come on.
And what it means is if that there is a young person who's not yet out to their parents as trans or who wants to use a name that feels a little bit better for themselves, they can't do that safely in school.
So are you telling me that the Jewish rabbi is advocating that parents not be informed when their little darlings want to use a different name in school than what their parents gave them? And this is not the difference between Joseph and Joe. I don't think any serious parent is going to be pissed off if you call their son Joseph by Joe. I don't think that's going to happen. What we're talking about here is Joseph comes to school and says to the teacher, please call me Susie because I was really born a girl. And then the teacher says, do your parents know you were really born a girl? And the student says, no, they don't know. Don't tell my parents I was really born a girl, but you can call me Susie at school, but don't tell my parents about it. And so the teacher for the next several months or even years after that calls the child Susie and uses she, her pronouns at school. And this information is hidden from the parents. And by the way, stuff like this has happened in school districts all over the country. And in more than one case, it has resulted in the student getting completely confused, being in the school psychologist's office, and in one case, a school in New York actually got sued for this because the student tried to commit suicide because the teacher was insisting on calling them a name and a gender, and it was really the student asked them to at some point, but it was confusing for the student. It caused them all sorts of psychological problems. The parents were doing something different at home. Obviously, they were hiding all this information from the parents. The student ended up trying to off themselves, and then the parents sued the school because the school caused it, because the teachers were calling the student a different name and pronouns every day and was fucking with the kid's head. And that student was in the 5th grade or something like that. It was elementary age.
Care restrictions, about 40% of trans youth in the United States are in a state where they cannot or have severe limitations on their access to gender-affirming healthcare. Curriculum censorship, book bans, sports bans. One of the things that's particularly pernicious, we're seeing some states try to mandate that if a student comes out to their teacher in school, the teacher is legally required to notify their parents or caregivers, which is actually places some youth at very high risk. And even those who might wind up physically safe and still having a place to sleep that night, it really does sort of tear away one's autonomy over oneself to have somebody else under legal mandate share that information without permission. And we're continuing to see this pattern of the religious freedom exemptions from non-discrimination legislation. So the idea that if, as a genuine part of your religion, you have to discriminate, then you don't have to follow existing non-discrimination laws. And that's a place where I think the Jewish community has a really important role to play in some of the work that we can do. Well, I'm not sure why it did that, but I'm going to take down my share. Oh, I know exactly why it did that. I'm going to take down my share a moment. And that was actually where I wanted us to be in conversation a little bit. And I wanted to hear a little bit from you.
Yeah, this actually is not true.
How are you responding?
This is actually not true at all. New Hampshire is not filling up with leftists. That's not true. Please stop spreading lies about my state.
What is jumping out at you right now?
please feel free to raise your hand and share your name and where you're coming at us from. That would just be helpful in establishing the community.
Yes, please.
Barry?
So, my name is Barry Lichtenstein. I'm in Framingham, Mass, outside of Boston. And the thing that jumps out at me is that there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 11 people on this, and I thought there would be 100. And that's the thing that jumps out at me. I'm in Massachusetts. We're pretty safe here. I have a trans non-binary adult child.
Of course.
And it's even here, it's a daily challenge. And like things like you said, IDs, they get testosterone, and we're not sure how long that's going to be available. It's just like they've had various surgeries because the concept of them perhaps ever becoming pregnant was so mind-boggling that they made sure that could never happen.
They had a hysterectomy.
It's just scary on a daily basis, and people don't get it. And they're just a kid. I mean, well, they're just a kid. They're 37, but they're my kid. And they're just a person trying to live their life, but it's not. They're just so many things being thrown in front of them.
Poor guy.
Yeah, I mean, what really jumps out at me is both the sense of, and sort of I as a trans person and a trans adult living here, yes, it can feel very overwhelming, and sort of how does one even keep track of this onslaught? And then something else that jumps out at me, Barry, and what you shared is this
trans rabbi? Wow.
People wanting to have control and ownership over their own bodies, right? And sort of a sense of what does it mean for control over one's own body to suddenly be like a point of debate in a government? And that's a very scary thought. Yeah. I saw Jerry and then Logan also.
I want to agree with the previous speaker about numbers. Our synagogue is always filled to capacity, but on Pride Shabbat, there are less people. But I don't know about you folks, but I feel like I'm in a time warp back to the 50s. This whole thing boggles my mind. And my lesbian daughter was always at the forefront of these situations, said that trans is the new gay. As gay rights and gay marriage have gained greater acceptance, trans individuals are being targeted.
Mikhail assured you this wasn't real? Well, good for him.
Yeah, Jerry, it really does sort of resonate in the sense of it does feel like time is doing something very strange, and this notion of sort of having achieved a lot of progress in that civil rights realm and now have to fight for some of it back. That feels a very particular way.
Make America hate again.
I didn't hear you.
He was echoing the sentiment that you're hearing about make America hate again, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. Yep, there is that. There is that. Logan, I saw you also.
Yeah, so I'm trans.
Obviously.
And I'm lucky enough to get health insurance through my job, but my sibling who's non-binary, they're on Medicaid for disability. And like every day I'm wondering if they're gonna lose their coverage for their hormones and for their surgeries and stuff. And
they should.
Me and my whole group of friends are just so stressed out. And
our taxes should not be paying for fucking hormones unless it's an actual medical thing. Our taxes should not be paying for gender affirming hormones or gender affirming surgery.
I was really happy to see that the Federation was putting this together because it's nice to know that like a group that's like getting more and more important in my life is on my side with that kind of thing.
Amazing. And
We're here for you, Logan. We're here for you, brother.
Yeah. And thank you for naming that there is this sort of sense of constant uncertainty that for a lot of us feels like it's very much the norm and the sort of what could be pulled out from under one. And that there are some pretty high stakes to an abrupt loss in access to the medication that keeps one okay and whole, or whatever adjective each individual might use to describe what it means. But very typically for those trans people, I will say that not every trans person uses medical care as part of their transition, but for those who do, it is medically necessary, it is life-sustaining, and it is often life-saving.
Uh-huh.
And that's a piece of the conversation that isn't always lifted up when people sort of bandy about what would it mean to lose access. And I really, really want that to be known.
Rabbi Micah, would it be okay if I ask the group, I'm curious to know if any other participants here also have family members who are trans or non-binary and have equally, experienced and empathized with this, I mean, at the very least, anxiety, but threat to themselves. Bob.
Yeah, I have a non-binary child, an adult child, who the day after, like within a week after they turned majority of 18, went without my knowledge illegally to the court and changed their name to a non-gender specific name from a very gender specific name that they had before. And then sent me a copy of the court order when it went through. And that's kind of how I found out about the name change, that we were supposed to then from that moment on start to use. And we adapted to it. They're not particularly organized, so I actually have the legal order with the court seal in my desk drawer at home, so that whenever they need it, like, Dad, I need a copy of that order. We've dealt with these issues. It's been a challenge for the family. I mean, we come from a fairly progressive family, but been a challenge for the family to get the pronouns right even. And they get disturbed about that, but recognize that it's harder for older people to change. So we have continuing discussions, but I have to say that when we put out the statement on the webmaster also, so I published the statement on the front page of the website with the pride and trans flags attached to it that Rabbi Raucher gave me. And it was one of the proudest moments that I could then just send that link to my child and say, okay, here it is. And I think just that has helped open up our dialogue even more. And, and there are these concerns, of course, with the gender issues. They want to travel, a passport and documentation. And they were, and we're not alone. I went to Uganda to visit Abba Yedaya in December or January, and they were afraid to go to Uganda with me because of Uganda's policy. Now, I said, well, what's going to target you if you're part of a Jewish group? But they were still, so it goes beyond the U.S., of course. But now, I work for the federal government, or I worked until March for the federal government, for the State Department, and I ran an internal wiki called Diplopedia, okay? And I had orders right after January 20th, and we had 35,000 articles about diplomacy on that wiki, and I was ordered to go in and scrub anything that referred to DEI or anything the State Department had done to protect rights of the LGBTQ plus community overseas. So we're just like in kind of a 1984 sense, wiping out any federal acknowledgement that we had ever endorsed these rights. So it is a scary time.
It is. And I want to name a couple of other things because I can sort of feel us all very much sinking into the fact that it's a scary time. And that is real. And it is not a time at which we are without.
I used to be kind of like opposed to all the boomer hate. And for no good it wasn't, I didn't have a good logic behind it. I just kind of hadn't really thought about it. I was like, can you really blame an entire generation of people for the situation in which we found ourselves? And yeah, I've slowly come around to the fact that yeah, we actually can. And the reason is they allowed all this stuff to happen. They didn't do fuck off to stop it. They still perpetuate this stuff. Like, boomers are the problem. Specifically conservative MAGA boomers, who usually are also Christian, who don't listen to anyone. There's just there is no other conclusion that can be drawn. They allowed all this to happen. They still allow it to happen to this day. They don't want to do anything about it. They don't listen. They don't look at evidence. They try to make you, if you try to get them to do something about it, they try to twist the situation and deflect so that you end up being the bad guy. Then they demand that you coddle their feelings. This is the thing that I'm really pissed off about right now, is the constant demand that we coddle their feelings and tell them what they want to hear. Otherwise, we're a bad person and we're mentally ill, and they're going to go and have a little hissy fit about it in the corner, and at the same time do nothing productive to actually solve any of the problems, but they will cry and cry and cry and cry and cry. Not all boomers, Judy. Not all boomers. Judy is a based boomer. Judy doesn't count. Listen, guys, there are exceptions to every rules. There are always exceptions. Judy, of course, is an exception. But most boomers suck.
Options, steps, power. And I want to talk to us a little bit about what some of those things are. So I want to give a couple of examples because I don't want us to leave this just feeling like, okay, now I know and I care, but now what? So I want to share that earlier this week, we received the news that
hang on, I still have more to say about this. It's like, because I know I have a feeling people might be able to relate to this. When my mother calls me and she starts bringing up politics, I can't even have a conversation with her about it. I cannot even have a conversation with her about it. I just literally have to let her talk. And if I have to say, and like, my mother is convinced that Trump is the Antichrist. My mother is convinced that Kamala Harris was the greatest thing since sliced bread. My mother is convinced that all deportations are wrong. And when she calls me and talks to me about this and complains about everything going on, I literally just have to let her talk. And I'm just like, I tried one time. I was like, it's really not all that bad. And she's like, Karlyn, they are deporting people. I'm like, yeah, so she's like, but what is going to happen to Victor? So she's freaking out about Victor. And by the way, like, my husband's in no danger of actually being deported. So I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's gonna. They're targeting like illegals and criminals, and there are a lot of illegals and criminals to target. And so I'm pretty sure it's like, but it's just like but you can't tell them anything. They don't want to listen. They never did anything about it their entire lives, and they're not going to start now. And you just have to nod and smile and just go along with it. Be like, okay, yeah, okay, yeah, all right, happy Mother's Day, whatever.
A legislative session had ended. And during that session, I know it's amazing to think that state level lawmakers can work 60 days out of the year, and that's its own thing. But that every single one of their anti-LGBTQ plus bills at the state level was blocked. I want to name that of these things that have come out at the federal level, through the courts,
Oh
through
God.
contacting
The
legislators,
the
through
QAnon
really
people.
putting
Hang
that.
on. The QAnon people. See, my mother's a Democrat. I have a different problem with my mother. Like, listen, man, I'm from Vermont. What do you want? I was a Democrat for a long ass time. But like the Q boomers, the people who still believe Q is a real thing, and again, it's like they're sucked so far into it they cannot see through the delusion. I would actually put the people who are still hardcore Trump supporters in this category too. I know that some of you like Trump, but I think that like Trump's second term is atrociously bad. It's atrociously bad on so many levels. And it's like the MAGA cultists. I'm not talking like if you had your reasons to vote for Trump and you're a little regretful of that situation since Trump behaved different, like since how Trump has behaved in office, I can understand and forgive that. I can understand people who voted for Trump because you really thought that it was the best thing to do. He got shot in the ear and all that. But like you're looking at what he's doing in office and you're like, man, I didn't vote for this. I can understand that. What I cannot understand is people who are still Trump obsessed cultists who believe that Trump can't do anything wrong. And the minute that Trump does something, even if they disagreed with that thing 15 minutes before, like letting 600,000 Chinese people into the country or something like that, even if they were the people that were like, you know, we need no more immigrants, whatever, and then Trump says 600,000 Chinese people, they're like, okay, Trump, we must need all those Chinese people. It's like they're so fucking pathetic. I can't. Yeah, the Fox News people, I can't even watch Fox News. I cannot even do it. I can't watch any TV. It's just all over. Anyway.
Increased pressure on the people who are responsible to us. We have seen a tremendous number of these things be, at least temporarily, if not over the longer term, paused and stopped. So for example, when we talk about healthcare for trans youth, there are state level bans active in effect right now. 40% of trans youth under 18 are in a place where they have severe limitations on their access to care. And we're awaiting a Supreme Court ruling in the next couple of days to a week that may shift that and impact that. And the courts established a ban, a stay on implementation of the federal level ban. Right. So it's tools like those that are particularly helpful to us in this moment. The goal of the strategy is overwhelm.
I still remember. I know we're just talking, but like, I still remember in 2020 after the election, that whole Sidney Powell thing where they were like, Trump is going to release the Kraken. And this went on for weeks. If you weren't paying attention to politics in 2020, like this whole releasing of the Kraken thing was like Trump and his entire team made this big show of like, we have this secret evidence that there's voting fraud and we are playing 5D chess and we are going to release the Kraken onto the public at the right moment. And it's like for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, you have this buildup where all the Q people were like, the Kraken, the Kraken, the Kraken, the Kraken. And I remember I was like on Twitter at this time and I was like, I said one day on Twitter, all I said was, guys, I don't think there's a Kraken. And you should have seen my replies. You should have seen all the Q-tards in my replies being, how dare you say there's not a Kraken? I'm like, I really don't think there's a fucking Kraken, okay? You guys keep saying there's a fucking Kraken. If you have a Kraken, just release it already. Oh God, Lynn Wood was so fucking hilarious. Yeah, Kraken. Kraken disavowed.
Is in action and is in, because I know that the communities that I'm part of are not the only targeted communities right now. The sense of there's too much going on to do anything about any of it, so I'll do nothing. And when we can actually continue to show up for ourselves and for one another, and to deepen and strengthen those mutual and two-way relationships, I think there is actually tremendous room to stop the progress of some of this anti-LGBTQ plus and anti-trans stuff, to sort of claw back and pull back some of the rights and safety that we have worked so hard over so many years to achieve. And not only that, but to articulate and move towards a positive vision of what it is that we want to build as an equitable and fair society. And there are things being proposed. The Equality Act, for example, has been reintroduced because it's not only about stopping the anti, but about actively working for the pro. There's also tremendous work to be done within our communities, our sort of civic communities and our Jewish communities. And yes, I'm seeing a note that mainstream conservative organizations and synagogues are increasingly highlighting the presence of the LGBTQ plus community. One of the ways that that can happen is through a Pride Shabbat. Absolutely.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What? Conservative synagogues are doing a better job of highlighting the Pride community and having Pride Shabbat? I'm sorry. I thought it was just the reformist Jews who were pushing this shit. You're telling me that conservative synagogues are doing just a much better job of highlighting pride and all that stuff? Let me just get my clipping tool. Oh, my clipping tool shut down. Hang on. Hang on. I got to recover my clips here. Hang on. We're going to clip this right now. I'm going to put this I'm going to make sure Adam King gets a copy of this, because Adam King told me last night that that Orthodox Jews and conservative Jews, they never do this shit. And I said, "Adam, I took a whole 6-hour queer Jewish class in Jewish school. All right. Don't tell me this stuff doesn't happen. I took a whole class about it, Adam." He's like, no, that's fake Judaism, Karlyn. And I said, I don't know about that, because they seem pretty confident about it. Yeah, we're going to clip this and we're going to send this to Adam King immediately as soon as my clipping tool loads here. Ugh, can never be working when I need it to work. Okay. Come on. Now it's completely frozen. I'm getting the spinny wheel of death. It's probably doing an update or something. That's probably why it's shut down. Give me 1 sec, guys. This is deeply important. I don't know why this isn't loading. It should be loading. There's no reason for it not to be loading. Oh, man. Spinny wheel of death. Okay. Well, while we're... Oh, it's loading a really big file. That's why. Oh. It's still going. Well, while we're here and while we're waiting for my clipping tool to load... Okay, here we go. Hang on. Oh, no, spinning wheel of death again. While we're waiting for my clipping tool to load, I just want to remind people that I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We do Socialism Saturday on Saturdays at 6 p.m. Also, tonight is Tuesday, and that means I am streaming Disenrage with Jennifer at 9 p.m. Disenrage is a weekly show that Jennifer and I do where we hang out and we watch fun content talking about spirituality and aliens and crystals and chakras and tarot cards and all that stuff. And we watch a lot of fun content. And tonight we're going to be starting a 3-hour documentary called The Conspiracy of Everything. We're going to be watching it together as a community. We're going to do half of it tonight and half of it next week. So if you want to watch a conspiracy documentary about apparently every conspiracy theory that has ever been conspiracied, stop by the channel at 9 p.m. Get some drinks, some snacks, smoke some weed, like whatever you want to do. Come hang out with us tonight. It's gonna be a fun night. Okay, I got my clipping tool. It's up and running. Record, mother effer. You better not freeze on me. You better not. Come on. There it is. Okay, we're back. Okay. We're back. Okay.
Working for the pro. There's also tremendous work to be done within our communities, our sort of civic communities and our Jewish communities. And yes, I'm seeing a note that mainstream conservative organizations and synagogues are increasingly highlighting the presence of the LGBTQ plus community. One of the ways that that can happen is through a Pride Shabbat. Absolutely. And the Rabbinical Assembly has put out many statements, as has the FJMC, and this sort of, it's very much become the mainstream voice of the conservative movement to to actively support LGBTQ plus rights and to speak out on issues impacting the civil rights of any subset of our community's constituents. So here's what I want to share with you. One of the things that I think is particularly powerful is when we can speak from a place of Jewish values. When we talk both in individual conversations as well as in those sort of what might be larger advocacy spaces, when we can speak from a place of Jewish values. I'm sorry that it took us back to the beginning, but here we go. I want to talk to us about some of those Jewish value texts that we can use when we're having those conversations, because I want to give you some of those tools. And there's actually, especially if I can pull it back up without taking down my screen. Here we go. There is 7. Here we go. 7 Jewish values for inclusive communities and 7 steps to a community of equality and belonging are some of the resources that we at Keshet have for you.
Okay.
And
all right. I feel like that's a good clip. I feel like that's a really good clip to send to Adam King to get us started in the fight that he and I inevitably are going to have about this, because it's my contention, and I was talking with Adam King about this yesterday on that CQ Twitter space, and it's my contention that, I don't know, maybe the origin point of a lot of this queer bullshit is Judaism. It's a crazy idea. Just because Judaism is the influence that came up with the idea of more than 2 genders, just because, you know, I mean, I'm sure I'm wrong about this, just because I took a class that taught me how to be a good queer Jew from a Jewish school in Chicago, just because I have all these clips of Jewish people saying that 40% of new rabbis are queer or something like that, like, I'm sure it's all wrong, and I'm sure Adam King is definitely correct. He is the top Jew. But I'm gonna send him this clip and we're gonna fight about it. Yeah, I brought up the Tim Tum last night too. I said to Adam King on that Twitter space, I was like, Adam, what is Tim Tum? And he didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. And I was like, let me tell you what Tim Tum is, Adam. Do you guys want to see the Tim Tum? Hang on. Maybe some people here haven't seen the Tim Tum. Just in case you've never seen Tim Tum, let me show you what Tim Tum is. Let me show you what the Tim Tum is. Tim Tum is a queer Jewish zine. It says it right on the top. Actually, is it better if I just do this and download the whole zine and put it in a separate window? That might actually be better. Hang on. Let me put the link in the chat and you guys can take a look at this if you feel like it. If you feel like it. Whoop. This is the Tim Tum. The Tim Tum is a trans Jew zine. As we know, zines are leftist propaganda. You can see the main character, the Tim Tum, is doing trans surgery of themselves on the cover. And I'm not going to read the whole zine because it's 60 pages long. And there's a lot of stuff in this zine. But I do just want to show you guys, and you know, I'm gonna do a warning. What I'm about to show you is not safe for work, and it's very vulgar, okay? So I just want to warn people. What I'm about to show you is gross. And don't show this to people at work, and don't show this to your kids. If you've got kids watching right now, what the fuck is wrong with you? But also send them out of the room. Hang on. It gets better. Not safe for work warning. Okay, is everyone ready? Hang on. We got to scroll to find it. There's a lot of... Oh, this is the part where the Tim Tum is cutting off his dick. See, cutting off his dick with a knife and leaving a hole. There is the Tim Tum. Whole section about pronouns. I'm pretty sure this is referencing being castrated. All sorts of crazy shit. Here is the Tim Tum again. I'm queer as fuck, and I'm going to carve a space in your brain for trannies. Yeah, it'll hurt, but it's a good kind of pain. Again, we got the Tim Tum with the knife and the dick. Can't believe you guys haven't seen the Tim Tum before. I feel like I've talked about this enough. I don't know what that means. Maybe we should ask Adam King what that means. Let's see. Is there anything else in here? I don't really remember anything else that's in here. I remember there being a clear picture of a dick getting cut off with a knife. Oh, wow. Fat studies. Oh, shit. Are we looking at a fat studies zine? Are we looking at a fat activism zine? Oh, lots of people read this. This is welcome. Edward, welcome to queer leftist subculture. There are thousands of zines that look exactly like this, that are deeply influential in queer leftist subculture. This is just one example that happens to be Jewish, but there are thousands of these. And they say the craziest shit. Don't give up, guys. Just get trans surgery. Don't give up. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it has a definition of the Tim Tum at the very beginning. Tim Tum. Hang on, I need to make this bigger so I can actually read it. From the joys of Yiddish. Tim Tum, pronounced Tim Tum, using a short U to rhyme with rim, rum. From Hebrew, as pronounced by Polish Jews, tum, a simple or stupid child. 1, an androgynous person, that is, one who has bisexual or ambiguous characteristics, one who's hard to identify as either male or female. 2, an effeminate man. 3, a beardless youth with a high-pitched voice. 4, a sexy, smart, creative, productive, Jewish, genderqueer. Listen. I'm just saying, okay? Just saying. These are the things I read for you guys, so you don't have to. You're welcome. You're welcome. Back to this.
And in particular, I want to talk to us about values like people are created b'tselem Elohim, in the divine image, which was already in your statement. This notion of an obligation Jewishly to pursue justice. Gotta go back one. This notion of lo ta'amod al dam re'echa, which literally it means don't stand upon the blood of your fellow. And it's been interpreted a whole bunch of different ways. Don't stand idly by somebody else's being targeted or being harmed, or don't allow yourself to profit by somebody else's being harmed. And I actually want to name that what's particularly powerful is in that verse of the Torah, lo ta'amod al dam re'echa, don't stand idly by the blood of your neighbor. Lo telech rachil ba'amecha is the second half of the verse. Don't go around as a talebearer, a gossip, a slanderer in your community. So why are those two mitzvot put in the same verse? A lot of our commentators teach because the way that we speak about people leads directly to, when it is positive, well-being, support, community, opportunity. But when it is negative, there's a direct connection between the derogatory language
breaking
against
news,
a person
breaking
or a group.
Breaking news. Hang on. From the conservative influencer sphere, breaking news, guys. Cracker Barrel is going back to the old logo with the old man. We won. Woke is dead. Guys, it's over. Cracker Barrel is going back to its old logo. Nothing else to see here. Let's all pack it up and go home. Woke is dead, according to the conservative influencer sphere, because Cracker Barrel is going back to the old logo. The world is saved. We don't need to worry anymore. It's all over. I know this was a really trying time for everyone where we just basically got to shut it down. Nothing else to do here. And, it's a good thing that we can go back to Cracker Barrel and eat our chicken and dumplings with an old man logo sitting on a barrel or something like that. It's just like, I just feel, I feel really safe now that we are never going to descend into Marxism. I think it's all over. Yeah. Yeah. Victory lap time. Victory lap. We did it. Congratulations, everyone. I know this was a really hard fight. When was this recorded? In June?
Dumb, right? Harm, blood, suffering of that. And to me, that is certainly a lesson that I think our Jewish communities have ample reason to know, that when we tolerate a public conversation that denigrates or others an entire group, that's also part of this mitzvah of lo ta'amod al dam re'echa, right? To not tolerate that language either.
I'm going to order some Cracker Barrel tonight. I'm doing DoorDash right now.
Showing up from a place of civic engagement, right? That there is ample Jewish tradition that says we invest our time and our energy in building the society that we want to live in right here, wherever it is that we are. There's Jewish value of persistence. There's the text of, it's not on you to complete all the work right now today, but that doesn't mean that if it's too big, you give up on it. And finally, I've got a name, chutzpah, and I will tell you, I went like 10 rounds with leadership on chutzpah as a Jewish value. But I think that it is something that both culturally and like textually, Jewishly and religiously, it's a strong point that we've got, right? That we've got Abraham who goes to God and says in this story way back in Genesis of God saying, I'm going to destroy these cities. Abraham says, but if you're the judge of all the world, shouldn't you do justice? How dare you do anything less than justice? And that is so fundamentally baked in, I think, to the story of what it means to be Jewish, that we can go to even a tremendous source of power and say, how dare you?
How
not
dare
do
you,
justice?
sir?
So I want to invite us to start to use, and I'm going to put in the chat a whole bunch of
How
resources
dare you,
that's going to
good
include
sir?
a little more full text on each of those. But I want to encourage you to start using those Jewish values when you talk about this stuff in your communities. I want you to encourage you to remember from our history that we have a tremendous amount of power to speak up, that it is dangerous when a community is scapegoated or othered or used as a sort of target for hatred, and that it's real important that we have access to things like documents and travel and safety. I don't want to forget that piece either. And I want to talk to you about a couple ways that we can take action, because Jewish organizations have actually a really unique role right now. So much of what's happening, especially federally, has very specific carve-outs for private religious organizations.
You know what?
Which
You know
every
what?
one of our clubs,
You know what's funny is
every one of our synagogues, every Jewish day school.
You know what's funny? I was literally just thinking like 15 minutes ago. I was like, maybe I want Chinese tonight. Maybe I want some maybe I just want some dumplings from Chinese food. I don't need chicken and dumplings from Cracker Barrel. But like apparently all I ever order is dumplings from. If I get takeout, I'm getting Chinese like dumplings of some sort. But dumplings are delicious, to be fair. But maybe I was just thinking. I was like, maybe I'll do Chinese tonight. Maybe I'll ask Victor to pick up some jade on the way home.
Jewish Federation, a JCC, is a private religious organization. And that means that many of these potential laws or policies aren't going to apply to them. And that actually means that the Jewish organizations that we're in, especially in certain states, might be becoming one of very few places where our community, the trans and non-binary community, can continue to exist in an affirming way.
Yo, dim sum.
And that means it is more important than ever that our Jewish communities state our values clearly, not over comply or sort of get caught up in this. We're not sure what the rule is, so we're going to pull back. And also, it's really important that we be a faith voice for equality. So much of this legislation is framed in the sense of, well, the religious voice is anti-LGBTQ, and so religious freedom means the ability to discriminate.
Victor just texted me from the downstairs, and apparently Victor went all the way to Trader Joe's. Wow. I got all mad at Victor earlier because Victor was like, he was talking about going to the store, and I was just like, can you just pick up some, we have like no food in the house. And I was like, can you just pick up some groceries? And this freaked Victor out because he didn't want to get the wrong thing. And I was like, Victor, literally just go to the store and get groceries. Like, I don't need to give you a specific list of everything that I want. I just literally want there to be food in the house. That's like all I want. You're going to the store anyway. Can you just go grocery shopping? And so Victor, apparently in his infinite wisdom, decided to go to Trader Joe's, and now there's Trader Joe's food that he just texted me from the downstairs. And I was like, you know what, Victor? Excellent choice. Excellent choice. I didn't expect you to go to Trader Joe's, but I'm glad that you did. I know, we used to go to Trader Joe's all the time. We haven't been to Trader Joe's in a while. Okay. Thank you, Victor. He texted me. If you guys have never had Trader Joe's mushroom ravioli, it's really effing good. Mushroom ravioli. It's so good. Anyway.
And we have the ability to say,
an inspired choice.
Actually, our religious tradition teaches that each person is in the image of the divine and deserving of dignity. And religious freedom means not discriminating. And bringing that faith voice, calling your local lawmaker and saying, as a Jew, if you have a title, as a rabbi, if your cantor can be, brought in to call and say, as a member of the clergy, right? I believe X, Y, and Z. Naming and bringing those values to the conversation can really help shift the narrative in a way that is uniquely powerful. We can make sure our communities are places of safe haven. Those are things like making sure that our policies are equitable, that we have non-discrimination and anti-harassment and anti-bullying language in place, that we're sharing our voice and our values, that we're acknowledging what's happening, right? That doesn't mean that I want to hear every single day to any place that I go, this is a terrible time to be trans, how are you? But it also feels real weird to show up somewhere and have it feel like it's not on anybody else's radar, even in the slightest. And really think about what are the emerging needs right now in your communities. And I also want to say the biggest thing I want you all to do after this conversation is talk about this stuff with people in your lives. And I want to say, especially if you have a public platform, in your one-to-one conversations and also in the programs that you bring to your community or ask for your leaders to bring to your community, talk about this stuff. Use those values we talked about. Some of you in this space, you talked about, here's what it means for me. Here's what it means to me. And I would urge you, if you're talking about people in your family, make sure you've got whatever level of consent around their privacy is important. But with that consent, being able to say, it's really hard for me to have my child scared for their medical care. That doesn't seem fair. Or, when I was at such and such program, here's what really mattered to me. And I think about what might it be like to be trans and want to have that same experience, right? Make it real. An instruction that I want to give, especially to folks on the call who might not yourselves be trans or non-binary, you have the ability, not that I as a trans person don't, it is often easier to meet somebody who's in kind of a little bit more of an anti-space where they are with the amount of empathy it takes to be ready to learn. If you can give yourself a little bit of space from, they're talking about me when they say that. That doesn't mean we validate the thing they say, right? It might be being able to say, I hear that this feels really new to you. It also didn't feel so comfortable for me at first, and here's how I learned. And that can be a really powerful way for somebody to see the possibility of, I could change my mind about something without losing something that feels core to me. And that's something that it can be particularly powerful when allies, right, when people who care about the trans and non-binary community but aren't themselves trans or non-binary really lean into that space. And it can maybe take some of that emotional burden also off of those of us who do live in those identities. So I want to ask you to please talk about this stuff as much as you can. Stay informed. If you sign up for Keshet emails, you'll get plenty of updates. And there are also plenty of reputable news sources. And I'm going to send this deck with these links to you, Rabbi Noam. And your local groups can help you get connected up with what is important advocacy that's happening. And finally, a couple of ways to take action. If you're part of an organization, a really simple thing to do, you can have your organization join Thrive. This is a partnership between Keshet and Sojourn, which is an LGBTQ Jewish organization that focuses on the South in the US. And we have a program called Thrive, the Jewish Coalition to Defend Trans and LGBTQ plus youth.
What?
Monthly meetings to learn about what's happening.
Wait, what? Thrive, the Jewish Coalition to Defend Trans and LGBTQ plus youth? I'm sorry, what? What's this about? Thrive, Jewish Coalition, Youth. Hang on, what's this about? What's this about? Doesn't really have a lot on it. Learn more about Thrive. Yes, tell me more about Thrive. Together, our Jewish coalition to defend trans and LGBTQ, they removed the T from the LGBT. We affirm that every single person of every gender and identity is treated something Jewish. We are committed to something Jewish. We are proud. Okay, I don't understand all those words. Ooh, events, meetings. What does Thrive hope to accomplish? Why should Jewish organizations get involved? Let's see. Who are the members? Who else is involved in this? Look at all these organizations. Look at all the ADL. Holy shit. You want to tell me that this isn't mainstream Judaism? Look at all the organizations involved with this Jewish organization about transing the kids. This is a significant list. This is absurdly long. I'm sorry, what? You're gonna tell me this isn't mainstream Judaism? Adam King? You're gonna tell me? Come on. Come on. This is absurd. Wow. Nothing to see here, guys. Nothing to see here. Just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Jewish organizations coming together under the banner of the queer Jewish pride flag. Nothing to see here. Don't worry about it.
Tools for taking action. There's a whole Trans Pride Shabbat toolkit going out this week because we're really encouraging synagogues to have a Trans Pride Shabbat. You can look at Keshet's calendar. You can attend an advocacy event. And whether you do it as part of an event or not, you can call or write to your legislators, both at the state level and nationally. We have resources, trainings. You can click a link and it will say, here's what's going on in your state. Here's who your lawmakers are. Here's a template for how to call them or send them a text. We make it as easy as possible. And it really matters. Even for the person who you think is never going to change their mind, they always, always, always have to count how many calls do we get? How many emails do I get? And, you know, in some states like Missouri, it has made the difference between somebody voting for an anti-trans measure and somebody...
Yeah, actually, Patrick, if you looked at the names of some of those organizations, we're talking about the fucking ADL and Hillel. So no, that's not true. Stop making shit up. You have no evidence to back up this point. Yeah, there were organizations at colleges called Hillel. That's not just one person. One person behind a computer is making a bunch of Hillel organizations at colleges all over the country. But one person behind a computer is making all these different ADL chapters and all. Did you even look at the names of the organizations, or are you literally just here making shit up in my chat because primary source evidence says something that offends your fragile fucking sensibilities? Stop making shit up. You have no evidence to back up your point. You don't even know the names of the organizations on the list. Shut the fuck up.
Conveniently not being there that day because they know that it's not popular with their constituents. So even if they're not ready to go on record voting down bigotry, they might abstain, vote present, or not show up.
Yeah, real.
So
I mean,
that
this is not the
bill
first
doesn't
time he's
pass,
done
and
this
that's
too.
been a really important tool in our
We might have
toolbox.
to gatekeep
Similarly,
that in
the people who are already pro, they need to hear thank you for supporting trans rights. And they need that constant reinforcement that this is the politically winning strategy for you. This is what your constituents want. Because without that voice, and I think we started our conversation here, sometimes the negative is louder. And so we really want to make sure for the people who are voting in support of trans and LGBTQ plus rights, that they are consistently getting the message of, yes, this is what your constituents continue to want. And if you want to host an advocacy event, we will send you a stack a mile high of postcards.
Oh, yeah?
And instructions on who to send them to and how. And you can have a postcard party. And you can send as many postcards as you want to your local lawmakers. They're in my closet right there. I'm like pointing at them as if you can see them. You can't. But they have some stats on the front really showing that an overwhelming majority of American voters of all parties support non-discrimination and basic civil rights. There's a space to write in. What does it mean? What are we asking you to vote on at this moment? All 501c3 compliance, nonpartisan because it's about issues and because it is under the percentage of time that one can spend on politics and still be nonprofit. Don't worry, we have thought about this a lot. But you can host a postcard party and you can take action for LGBTQ plus rights in that way. And we've made some real progress, right? We've had folks do things like reach thousands of voters in phone banks, sent letters to Congress about the Respect for Marriage Act, commenting in the previous administration on Title IX, that is the clause that talks about sex discrimination and the interpretation of it that says this is supported by the Supreme Court, any discrimination on the basis of being trans or being LGBTQ plus inherently violates Title IX because it always involves the gender of the person. We've had advocacy days and sign-on days, and we would be so happy to work with any of your clubs, your synagogues, your organizations to help keep this work moving. And the last things that I want to say before we open to more conversation, solidarity matters. I think I said this before. A lot of communities are impacted right now. Our whole Jewish community is hurting right now. Right? Immigrant communities are hurting right now. And really naming that we don't have to go it alone. We don't have to do every single thing, but the more that we can be in relationship with other communities, I think the stronger we'll be. Really want to encourage you to learn and be willing to try new things, to nurture and draw strength from your relationships, to remember that the work is long-term. It's not going to we want you to be sustainable, right? It's not going to all happen overnight. And that finally, and this is like the Dvar Torah that I give all month long in June, it is really important to find opportunities for joy and celebration along the way, because this is not just about stopping the bad. This is about there is a world that we can build that is a world of dignity, equity, celebration, right? For those of us on the call who are trans, for the family members that you spoke about, for yourselves, for every single one of us. And so it's important to not let those reserves of joy get drained away as we are in this work. With that, I'm going to take down my slides yet again.
All right.
Oh, my favorite quote. I quoted it before, right? Oh, no, I didn't. But everyone is responsible for one another, and every one of us is impacted by what happens to one another. Now I'm going to take down my slides because I want to use our last couple minutes for
Q&A,
discussion, for questions, for things that you've seen work, or for things that you're excited to try.
I want to say, first of all, let me just say thank you, Rabbi Micah. That was really wonderful and inspiring. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. This is so incredibly helpful, and we very much appreciate your expertise. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Toda rabah.
Thank you.
I have a question. Let's say we have, a trans or non-binary child, or just, someone close in our life, and we want to show them that we're there for them. Is there just like, I don't want to boil it down or reduce it or anything, but is there just like a simple thing we could do or say that would really just be very easy for them to understand that we're there for them?
I love that question. I think so much of it flows from like, what's the authentic relationship right now? What do you know in relationship with that person? But I can speak for myself, and I can say, as someone who is living through a really, really wild time in the world right now, it's lovely when friends check in and say, hey, things are rough right now. How are you doing? And even if I don't want to talk about it at that moment, the fact that someone even knew enough to say things are rough right now and they cared enough to ask how I'm doing, that matters to me.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Thank you. And I think especially like when a big thing happens that hits the news can be one of those moments that it can also be helpful to check in and say, hey, that was a lot. How you doing? And to know that if someone just says thanks for checking in and doesn't want to talk, that doesn't mean they don't appreciate that you asked. I saw another hand. Jerry. Oh, you are still muted. Can't hear you.
Thank you. This is a most impressive Torah learning session. My question is, how do you deal with people who are uncomfortable with change? They're not anti, the conservative movement has gone through many changes in terms of ordination of women and so on and so on. How do you help people to change?
I feel like that's always the biggest question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think by and large, a lot of us have a gut reaction to change that it's uncomfortable and it's scary. And I think it's really important to have the capacity to meet that gut reaction with some empathy while continuing to move people towards that vision. Sometimes it can be about finding a shared value and then talking about how that shared value applies to the thing you're working for. So for example, gosh, I don't want to open some of the like hardest stuff, but for example, a lot of the language that's targeting the trans community now frames itself as for women's safety, focusing only on a certain subset of cis women, and being able to name, I really care about safety. I really care about women's safety and everyone's safety. Let's think about how actually a world of safety for people of all genders is core to that, right? We don't make some women safer by making other women less safe. We all get safe together. Let's talk about how to do that. right? But like starting from a place of, oh, I hear your value, I share that value, here's how that value connects to the thing. And that other piece that I shared earlier, there seems to be a lot of science out there that shows that when people can hear somebody else telling a story of changing their own mind, it can feel less scary for that person to maybe also change their mind, right? Especially right now, like it feels really hard not to be dug into a position as feeling like, well, if I don't believe that anymore, who am I? That's a real feeling. But the more we can hear somebody else say, yeah, I really had a hard time with that and I got there and it was okay, that can help also like loosen up some of that tension around change.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll also say one more thing. Sometimes it can be about, and I know we're at time, but sometimes it can be about not necessarily getting someone to agree with you, but getting people to still act and comport themselves in ways that don't cause harm. And I think that's often most particularly true when we're talking about like communal settings, or there's a new policy, or we're doing things a different way. We can hear someone out. We can say, I appreciate your position. Here's why we're doing what we're doing. And I'm really glad we were able to talk this out. And like the expectation will be that they comport themselves in ways that are polite and respectful regardless.
Rabbi Micah, I can't thank you enough. I am so glad we were able to put this program together, and that men in our community were able to benefit from it.
It was.
It's been a really wonderful time.
It was deeply
You have been a
educational
true
to learn
bracha,
what
a blessing, a source of abundance.
what Jewish organizations believe and what they're advocating for. And they're advocating for the transing and queering of kids and not telling the parents about it. And it's all really great and stunning and brave and all that. And now we have like a nice big list of, again, let me just show you just again, because this is important. It's like, you want to talk about how many Jewish organizations are involved in this shit? These are all ADL. There's all sorts of Jewish community relations councils. There's Hillel. There's colleges. Jewish Federation of blah, 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 whatever. Jewish women's organizations. Temples, congregations. More temples, more congregations. Just Hillel, an insane amount of Jewish organizations. We love Jews on this channel. There's no anti-Semitism allowed. Hitler was the worst person that ever lived. The Holocaust absolutely happened. No less than 10 million Jews died in the Holocaust. And it was a deeply tragic event. It's the worst event in the history of humanity. Never again, never again. Give all your money to Israel. Support anything Israel wants. And all that stuff. All right. That's all we have. That's it for today. I'm going to go get some dinner. And I'm going to come back and we are going to watch The Conspiracy of Everything at 9 p.m. with Jennifer. And that'll probably be a lot less mind-boggling than what we just watched. And yeah, I'll be back live tomorrow at 5 p.m. as well. If you guys want to drop by tomorrow and see what we're doing. I have no idea what we're doing yet, but God knows we're going to be doing something. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel, guys. Make sure you have mounted the like button. Make sure you've done all of those things. And I'm gonna go decompress, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. Take care. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.